This is Gemara and Yoma Daf Nun Tes. So the learning for this month of Siva, and as we wind down this month, has been generously sponsored as a special shidduch for Yisrael Chaim and Devaira. Mir Hashem, the learning of the entire Chabura should be a schos. They should find the Siva Kagin Bakariv, as well as today's Daf. It's sponsored as a special schos for Shlema for Naomi Bas Alta Esther. That Mir Hashem, all the tests and all the everything should go well. She should have refuah shlema b'karev. Of course, the rest of our chayim men v'vegel chayim v'sar shalom sim v'reiz yidol her v'sinendol ita b'asim v'schayisay yisol mendel v'rezer shavlei shamas naomi v'shavegu shechan v'odam shmo bentina daniel ben chan rizol look chay b'asin li brach v'sav adin eda v'shin min zivi v'figure nivernes v'chilis v'huva Rivka bas v'sheven atzelis v'in v'chleser b'sar sharchalei Yisrael svaz v'choshilach v'ataleya bas ita. We pick it up. We really just concluded Nur Chasim and Beis. We're moving over to Netesam and Aleph. Let's just go over the last three lines, and then Chasim and Beis, as the Gemara said, absolutely fascinating idea. We're within the Machlekes, Rav Akiva and Rav Yisrael, and said Rav Akiva that really Medina, three lines to the bottom, who carried the Bagav Bereisha, Ovid Bereisha. Whichever corner of the Mizbeach, again, we're discussing the application of when you mix the Dam Sa'ir and the Dam Par. You mix the two bloods together and you put on the Kronos on the corners of the Mizbeach Hazav, the small Mizbeach. Where do you start? Says the Gemara, says Rav Akiva, really you should start the place that you hit first. Dam Reish Lakish, a cloud that we've seen many times in Mavir and Al-Mitzvahs. Why don't you do that? Says the Gemara, because the Pasuk says V'yatza, which means you pass by the whole area. So you don't do the place you hit first, you pass by the whole area. Says the Gemara, but you know you do second. Fascinating idea, all the Mefarshim grapple with. Says the Gemara, you go back to the one you should have went first. From here, it would seem that there is somewhat of a raya that when it comes to in mavir and ala mitzvahs, it's not a one-time job. And if you messed over, then you continue. No, you always are supposed to go back to what should have been first. As the Gemara said, you go to where you have to go, but then you go back to what should have been worse. That was teretz number one. Ibayim on the top of the Netesam and Aleph, says the Gemara, a second teretz. Ibayim yisvir lana akafa beregel. The shaila is, do we discuss it that you walk around the Mizbech HaKtayres, the Mizbech HaZav with your feet? We learned the inside the Mizbech HaZav that we're discussing from the Chutz Mizbech and the Chayshes. Says the Gemara, Machlekes Rav Yosef and Rav Akiva is a sidebar Machlekes. Would the Kohen stand here and go around with his hand on all four corners, or would he walk around the Mizbech? Teres number one, and teres number two, the Kamal HaKafa Biyad. Everyone agrees you go around with hand and you don't walk around the Mizbech Penimi. As we learn out yad from regular, therefore we do not have to do all four sides or not. Says the Gemara, is that true? The Rav Yosef holds that you don't have to walk around the Mizbech, you put it on all four corners. We learn Rav Lezer Omer. They would stand in their place, they would stand in the place that they are, and they would apply it and put it on the corners of the Mizbeach. That's the Shita of Rav Eliezer. Sounds like that is Rav Eliezer's Chiddush, which of course shows us that the Tanakama disagrees, and therefore it would seem like the Tanakama does not hold that you do a kafa biyad. Rather, Tanakama is going to hold you walk around. So the Gemara is saying, you just told me Rabbi Yisrael Glili hold you stand in one place and you put it all around. Proves the Gemara that's not true. That is the teretz. How do you walk around the Mizbeach, which is the fundamental debate as to how you're going to put the blood in the Mizbeach. You can only do once you walk around, or once you at least put your hand around the entire Mizbeach. Another teretz says the Gemara it's equatable, even though of course it was massive. It was, I don't know, somewhat 50 feet by 50 feet, and yet says the Gemara, the same way you would have to walk around there, which of course you couldn't reach all four corners. So too by Mizbech HaZav, even though you could reach, you still have to walk around. Comes out fast in the entire Mizbech HaZav was the size of one corner, an amma by an amma. A square amma was on the corner of each Mizbeach HaChitzain, and that was Mizbeach HaPnimi that they had over there. Says the Gemara, Tani, we learned in a Brayso, Rav Yishmael Shnei Kohanim Gedolim, Nishayu b'Mikdash Yurtud Kohanim Gedolim that were left over from the base of Mikdash. Of course, all the Mefarshim discussed how were there two Kohanim Gedolim. We thought Kohen Gadol was a life sentence. Until the Kohen Gadol dies, he stays in office. So how is it possible that two Kohanim Gedolim? Some Mefarshim explain the reason is maybe the first one became possible in Yom Kippur and the Skan took over, and then after Yom Kippur they both are back to their being a Kohen. Rishon Zelmer bi Yodi Hakfasi, Zelmer Baragli Hakfasi. Zenoi saying down the Dvarav, Zenoi say down the Dvarav, Zenoi say down the Dvarav, Savadim Mizbeach Panimi, Kisavadim Mizbeach Achitz, and we equate inside to outside, just like outside you have to walk around. So to inside you have to walk around, even though it's a Chiddush, because you really can reach with your finger. Zenoi say down the Dvarav, Kulim Mizbeach Panimi Makom Chado Karen the Chitz and Kar, like we said, it's the size of one horn, so don't bring me a raya to the regular case of the Mizbeach. Says the Gemara of Lezer, they would stand in their place and they would sprinkle with a downward motion. Says the Gemara, Mastis and Mani, Rav Yehudi, the Tender of Meir, Aimer, Rav Eliezer, Aimer, they would stand in one place and they would sprinkle the blood. It would always go up to down. The one diagonal they did from the bottom up. It's the one time notch. You don't have to be worried. The final one, when you're closest to you, so you don't mix up the kelim. Basically, the Gemara is explaining when I take the blood. So if I swirl it downward, there's no problem with my finger. But if I'm going to paint it upwards, we're afraid the sleeve is going to get caught in the paint. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, so where do you sprinkle it? On the tahira, on the purity of the mizbeach. My tahira, as we mentioned in the Mishnah, what does that mean? What is the purity of the mizbeach? Rav Shila, palgate the mizbeach, halfway. How do we know halfway? Says the Gemara, that the day is purified, the day has passed, and it's by midday. So midday signifies the purities. When it says you put on the tahira of the mizbeach, it means in the middle. When they sprinkle, they don't sprinkle it on the coals. And actually, nor on the coals. Rather, what do? You push away the coals and you sprinkle on top. So says the Gemara, what's going on over here? That's what it's referring to. But only on that which is gluya de mizbeach, only the blood, which was exposed on top of the mizbeach. Tani, we learned in the Brayso, Chanani Oimer. Besides finding you nice, you do it on the northern side. Rav Yosi Omer, besides Raimi you nice in the southern side. But Michael Mifki, what is this machlekes of Chanina and Rav Yosi? Which corner? With which corner? You begin from Marsavar Pischa B'Daroim Kai. That's where the opening of the mizbeach was. Remember, between the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKadosh was a large curtain. So if the owner was the Darim, then the owner is going to be the first corner you're going to head to Marsavar Pischa B'Safoin Kai. So the Gemara explains the Koli Amami Echad the Garmin Matanas Dikrana. Once you equate them, then you put on top of the mizbeach itself, not on the side. My time, the place where you do the kiddush is a place you have the purity. Over here you have this a bit from yesterday. You see the kohen pouring the blood into the side, onto the base of the mizbeach. Note how the base of the mizbeach stops, of course. And as well over here in this picture, you see very nicely how the water is flowing together with the blood, all the amma, the whole canal which runs through the base of Mikdash. Over here we saw this yesterday, the Am Such a Sraimai, and over here it's pointing out, you see where the curtain is open, that's the way they're going to walk, or vice versa. Says the Gemara, here they're moving away the coals, and here they're putting the blood around the corner. Says the Gemara, Shiari Adama and the leftover blood, they would pour it on the floor, on the base of the outside Mizbeach. The Amar Cross, says the Gemara, we know from the fact. The Torah says, if the spill out all the blood, therefore everything goes into the garbage. V'shal mizbeach And they would pour on the Yisai Draimis on the southern part of the base, which we saw over here. Let's pull that picture up again. As you see over here on the base, it's going to be on the southern corner. That is where they're pouring the blood. Tana Rabbanan says the Gemara. That is the southern side. So everything is good and dandy. As you saw over here, there were two holes. So how do you know whether it refers to the south or the western? One explains the Gemara. Let's learn the way that you descend. You go off the ramp to the way that you approach the Eichel and Yom Kippur, which is closer to you. The western corner, because that's closest. You don't want to be Ma'avir and Ala Mitzvahs. You always still have to go that which is closest to you. That's going to be the southern hold. Everything goes in that hole. Ask the Gemara Rabbi Yishmael because of Lima Yilamit Sasin K'Mevayrish. That's Rabbi Yishmael. The first drasha makes a lot of sense. El Rav Shimon ben Yochai, my time. Where do you get this idea? Let's ask the Gemara. Where Shimon ben Yochai do you see that you have to put on each and every dish? Amar Ravashi, Kotsavar Pischa B'Darin Kai. The opening is supposed to be on the south. Tana, we learned in a Mishnah that Rabbi Yishmael b'Dvei Rav Shimon Yochai says that Yisai Deraimis Simanech Mashchua Gavra Ligavra harmless. Says the Gemara, that is where we know the door is, and that is the subsequent sprinkling on that part of the Mizbeach. Elu ve'elu, as we run down this daf, says the Gemara, Elu ve'elu mizarvim ba'am of Yitzin. All the blood gets mixed with the canal, and then it flows out of the Beis Hamikdash. And what did we say? We said very unique that all the farmers which gain from this, all the fertilization of the leftover blood, they should give their money to the Meiser Risha and Meiser Ani, which we'll see right now exactly what that means. Tanu Rabban and Mayalim b'dam and Divir Meir. Says Ramir, there is a din me'ilah. The money has kedusha. They say there is no din kedusha fundamental mach. Is there din kedusha on the fertilizer, on the blood, which came from the mizbeach, but now mixed together with the ammo, with the canal, it went out to go with all the lands of Klal Yisrael? Explains the Gemara. There is no me'ilah. Ask the Gemara, how do I know them? And it should be yours. I'm giving to you for you as a atonement, and you could do as you seem fit. The Kohen Gadol in front of the kapara, before, is the same as after when he gets the kapara. And therefore, what do we learn? Malacher kapara in by me'ilah, aflevnei kapara in by me'ilah. Just like afterwards when you redeem it, there's no left the din of me'ilah because you redeemed it, so too, then beforehand. Ve'ema says, again, the same question we keep on asking. I don't know, A is like B, maybe B is like A. You're trying to equate them, that the lefnei kapara is like lacher kapara. Says maybe the opposite. Maybe the acher kapara is like lefnei kapara. My lefnei kapara asks the Gemara yishba me'ilah, avlach kapara yishba me'ilah. Answers the Gemara, the chadavar shenatzis mitzvahs me'ilim ben. There's no such item that fits in this category that natzis mitzvahs me'ilim ben. There is a din me'ilah, and therefore the Gemara is concluding that there is no din me'ilah on this irrigation, even though it came from the blood, even though it came and it mixed together and irrigated the field. There is no issue to try to change it. Says, and that's where we're going to leave it, and we're going to pick up from here when the Gemara wants to go into Chumas Hadash and Emir Hashem tomorrow.